journal entry of Constable Luxley, Department of Temporal Investigations. Cisco's story checks out. By the way, I smuggled back one of these little tribbles. We might have some problems here. I'm about to go to Ryza with this thing, and it's going to get weird.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no! Oh, I made a dirty joke about a tribble.
Ew, that's gross.
That
You know,
is-
tribbles were actually supposed to be filled with, like, guts and stuff originally, but that's a story for another time. Hi, everyone.
Hello!
Welcome to Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies. And here I am, here with Mike, fabulous XO, Michael Pontone. Mike, how we doing tonight? You sound like a little tribble squealing back and forth.
Not bad.
Or-
Not bad at all.
you
Good episode. 2 good episodes in a row. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Gene Roddenberry. Thank you, Captain Kirk, and everyone involved.
Actually, thank you, David Gerald. He's actually one of the writers, or the writer of this episode, David Gerald. The episode we're covering tonight on Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies, everyone. And hi, everyone, and welcome. Also, quick aside, thanks for helping us get to 50,000 viewers on
Woot woot.
YouTube. Woo! Don't worry,
get
we're
around
going to
to
have
that
a
video episode eventually.
We'll get to the video.
All right, let's go to the videotape.
But tonight's episode is a perennial favorite, The Trouble with the Tribbles. This was written by David Gerald. This is actually from a spec script. What they had done is they had ran into David Gerald, who was a big fan. He actually wrote his way into Paramount Law to write this story. I really love this story, actually. But let's talk about what we're talking about from the NBC press release, which is for the December 29, 1967. But let's just, before we even do that, general impression I get, you really like this episode, huh, Mike?
I mean, fan favorite, and rightfully so. It's lighthearted. There are some stakes. There are some twists. There's some action. I gotta say, man, that fight, we're gonna get to it. Was it fake, or did these guys actually dislike each other? Because it wasn't the usual pulling the punches.
Well, you know, we could come to that. I think it's a little bit too long, that scene, but it's actually a lot of fun overall. It's got some seriousness. It's got some comedy. It's got it all. That's the way I think it is.
Also,
But-
that scene has Scotty drinking a gigantic glass of scotch. The pour,
Yeah.
that was like a quadruple.
Well, you know, Scotty, he's either nerding out on technical manuals or drinking heavily, and we
I
see
did
what
like
happens
that.
when you drink him.
Yeah.
That's why he doesn't want to go on shore leave. I think he wants to get in trouble. But
Well, just to point out, I thought it was laughable that they don't really have continuity between episodes where Kirk's like, come on, you don't want to go on shore leave? And he's hesitant. I would have been like, you remember what happened last time when I went on shore leave? And I killed those prostitutes?
Hey, it
I'll
wasn't
stay on the
him.
ship.
it was that was Red Jack.
I
Red Jack's no longer here. This is actually a fun, lighthearted episode.
Yes.
It's supposed to detail, at one point, David Gerald, the writer, said it was supposed to talk about overpopulation of rabbits in Australia, how
Oh.
they breed a lot. I actually like that fact, so it has an environmental message. But it also talks about his original concept was to say, like, how something so sweet and lovable can actually be quite dangerous. And yes, by the way, there are species on Earth that are born pregnant, like the tribbles. But let me first read you the NBC press release, and I want to actually read you also the TV guide notation, just to compare the two. But here we go from NBC. It says, millions of parasites swarm over the Enterprise and help Captain Kirk defeat a hostile empire in The Trouble with the Tribbles on NBC television network Star Trek Colorcast.
Wait, they are not parasites. They're not killing
Actually, they
anyone.
are.
No, how? Why?
Well, they are parasites. The Klingons even call them parasites. They're an environmental menace, but you only get that fleshed out later in the DS9
No, they're an invasive
crossover.
species. They're not. What do you mean? Parasite? How are they parasitic?
Well, that's quite true. That doesn't fit the definition. They are an invasive species. These have been redone several times, but let's just stick with the classic
Okay.
and correct version
Okay,
of the
you're right,
Tribbles.
you're right.
So that's the NBC. It does go on about who's starring in it, etc. But I want to read, that doesn't really fit what this story is. The TV Guide blurb says it better. Captain Kirk, assigned to protect a vital grain shipment at a space station, finds that he has troubles with tribbles. That's right, tribbles, balls of purring fluff that live on grain and are incredibly prolific, to say the least. I like the TV Guide version, so that's pretty wild to me. So that's the summation. NBC, I think, drops the ball consistently. Well, they also didn't pay for advertisement. I just want to quickly mention this is done by our hero director, Joe Pevney. That's why it's also shot very quickly and shot well. David Gerald was 23 when he wrote this. Now, who was David
Holy
Gerald?
smokes.
Do you know who he is?
Can't say
you
I
know
do,
who he
Captain.
is?
No.
All right. David Gerald is now a preeminent science fiction writer.
Oh.
He's written many things for Star Trek. He wrote the book version of Encounter of Farpoint. You guys are like, eh. He's written a series of books called The Battle of the Tor, called A Matter of Men is the first book. I have a funny story about that. I'll tell you a little later. He wrote something called Blood and Fire, which was supposed to be a next-gen episode where it explored concepts of homosexuality. NBC did not pick it up, but
It was called the Matt Ross, Michael Pontone story.
Oh, stop your fantasies, Michael. There's a YouTube video called Blood and Fire, a series of books called Star Wolf. And I'm going to post a video for Blood and Fire. It's actually pretty good. And then he wrote the book for some movie that you might have heard of called Battle for the Planet of the Apes. It's just a couple of things. Yeah, so he's done a lot of science fiction things for the years. His Battle of the Tor, and I believe that's CHTORR. It talks about an alien invasion that's not typical. It's not by ships and guns, but by a superior biome that invades the Earth. So he was a big science fiction fan. He wrote this, and his original concept was having two warring corporations fighting over who could develop grain on a colony, which was kind of like a Wild West planet. I'm glad there were numerous changes. Gene Coon liked what David Gerald did and had him rewrite it, and it was done to what you see right now. Gene Coon said to David Gerald at one point, sci-fi writers don't know scripts, and script writers don't know sci-fi. So if you can do both, let's see what you can do.
Now, when did the Klingons come into it?
Well, the Klingons were immediately replaced. David Gerald asked Gene Coon, can I use your idea of Klingons? Because Gene Coon came up with the Klingons. He came into it as an idea of a fight between two powers. And they wanted to add some peril to it by making it between the Klingons and the Federation, or the stand-ins for the U.S. and the USSR, and who could develop this area better. And that's where Sherman's Planet comes in. Sherman's Planet is also named after a girlfriend of David Gerald who had a pom-pom on her bag in college in 1967. So
nice.
it kind of is all full circle there. I actually like it. The original name of the Tribbles was known as the Fuzzies, and the idea of creatures being born pregnant, that was actually a Robert Heinlein idea. They had to beg Robert Heinlein, could you please let us use your script? This kid didn't mean to steal from you. Can you let us do it? He relented. So let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rewrites, all by David Gerald. And Gene Coon added some pieces at that point after that. So that's basically it. And one thing that's notable from our book is Gene Roddenberry was away. And David Gerald noted that Gene Roddenberry had almost no sense of humor, so he would have canned this episode. So I like it from the very beginning, from the humorous little conference room which is an exposition dump where Chekhov, Spock, and Kirk are talking about the situation with Sherman's Planet.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that opening? From the humor in there goes, you could smell them. It's a very little joke, all the way to battle station.
1 parsec, sir. Close enough to smell them.
That is illogical, Ensign. Odors cannot travel through the vacuum of space.
I was making a little joke, sir.
Extremely little, Ensign.
That entire thing, I thought it was well done, where you see the humor and the professionalism of everyone. What do you think about that stuff, since I've talked a lot?
I liked it. That's all I have to say. Listen,
that's it?
Well, I mean, again, I like that that it was an interesting way to start the episode with the red light, with the red alert and the distress call. They go to K7, and this Federation stooge is like, hey, it was an emergency to me because I needed someone to get here real fast to provide security. And Kirk is by the book, and it's like, hey, that's not how we do it. That's the thing that I really, it's really interesting. I've been watching this show now for a year and change with Captain, and everyone was always talking about how Kirk was the take no nonsense, fly by the seat of his pants captain. He is one of the most by the book captains we see ever.
Right.
I mean, maybe John Luke is a little bit more, but hardly. I could hardly imagine John Luke doing something that Kirk wouldn't, or vice versa. So he's just being, if anything, a little, not pedantic, but a little anal retentive about sticking to the book. But I think that it's great that we come to a space station, which is not. No, this is the first space station we've been to. We've been to different colonies,
Yes.
but not a space station.
That's correct.
And
This
it was
is the
great.
first space
I
station.
could taste the DS9 on here, of the variety of different characters, the bar, the con man Cyrano going around selling things. I'm like, oh, the excitement of what's happening on a frontier space station. Now, was this a Federation space station?
Yes, it is a Federation space station, but it's an open port. And it's funny that you say frontier, because originally this was supposed to all be planetside in a frontier town, which was almost lawless. So that's what that is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, again, transposing or continuing the wagon train to the stars. This is another Western in space, if you really think about it. But it's really good. I mean, space stations are always have a lot of mystery later. You can see that in Babylon 5. But DS9 is basically K7. The K7 stations, there's a whole bunch of lore out there about it, but they're deep space places for ports of call, etc. And this is our first space station that we actually see in the original series. It's really cool. They actually reused that model again. That's actually from an engineering concept idea. They just basically put it together to make the model. It's not actually a complete model. They just extrapolated and put it together. I think it's actually pretty cool.
What do you mean it's not a complete model?
It was what they did is the model that they had was a concept model from an aerospace company, and they just put it together. It only had actually 2 arms originally, so they had put on the 3rd arm, and that's where you got it. So it actually looks really neat.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I can see that it's like kind of the proto shape for the Federation space stations, Deep Space 5 and such.
Yeah, they're actually really cool. I also do like when you're saying that Kirk is by the book, running into Niels Barris. That is actually, I think that, Niels Barris is supposed to be the foil. That's William Shallert, who's in many things. He's even in DS9 later. So he plays a master of some sort of Bajoran flute. I forget the episode. It's early on. And he's playing in Quark's bar. But he's in lots of other science fiction, and he was also the father in the Patty Duke show for 6 years, I believe it was. So he is familiar to television, and you're like, oh, I know that guy. But playing the stuck-up Federation, just like Ambassador Fox or the Commissioner Ferris in the beginning, like they're so full of themselves. I just like that confrontation, too. What gives you the right to put the whole sector on alert for grain or like for a couple of storage bins of wheat?
You issued a priority 1 distress call for a couple of tons of wheat. Qudrotritacale.
I find that just that humor, but I could say that we run into people like that all the time. Not any judges or clerks or fellow attorneys, of course, but
Of course not.
Of course not. I would never make any claim such as that. But yeah, I actually like that character, Niels Barris. What did you think of him overall in this? You think did he play the prissy bureaucrat to the nth degree for you? Did you like it?
Mr. Barris is the Federation Undersecretary in charge of agricultural affairs in this quadrant.
And that gives him the authority.
Yes, although I knew... Okay, so spoilers here. We're kind of putting the cart before the horse. I was very familiar with this episode despite not having seen it from beginning to end because I'm a huge DS9 fan, as everyone knows. And the 25th anniversary of Trek was Trials and Tribulations.
30th anniversary, yes.
Or no, that was the 30th anniversary of Trek. Yes. So Trials and Tribulations was the DS9 crew seamlessly, perfectly going back in time through a Bajoran time orb and interacting with the crew of the Enterprise at this juncture. And it was revealed from the get-go that the ambassadors or the Commodore, whatever his name is, his little Twinkie assistant, was the bad guy. So I knew that. So throughout all the scenes, I'm a little distracted because I'm looking at the secret Klingon to see if he's telegraphing it in any way. But no, I thought he was good. You know, we've seen this archetype before. We saw this with that ambassador on the Armageddon planet. You know, we've seen there's something about Starfleet, and this lasts all throughout TNG and DS9 and Voyager and Enterprise and everything. When you go above Captain, you start to deal with some really crappy people. Like Captain and below, the commanders, everything, it's okay. Once you get to the admirals and the commodores and everything and the ambassadors, they get a little evil. They get a little self-serving.
Well, you know, it's a trope, the bureaucracy from hell. You know, we go into space, we might be enlightened in some ways, but our bureaucracy never gets enlightened, whether it's clerks misfiling things or politicians making promises. Here it's a politician. By the way, you're pointing out that his Arne Darvin, who was his assistant, that's actually a comedian, Charlie Brill. Him and his wife, Charlie Brill and Mitzi McCall, used to do openings for singers all over Hollywood. They used to do openings also for Anne Margaret. He knew Leonard Nimoy, Charlie Brill, so that's how he got the job. This gentleman who plays Arne Darvin, he had the unfortunate of booking him and his wife as a comedy team were the act right after the Beatles when they first premiered on the Ed Sullivan Show.
No.
So they could not.
Oh,
it's
boy.
like they just heard screaming and no one could hear anything. He noted that his timing was all thrown off. But he said he loved this episode.
I can imagine. Why not?
There's something interesting about Arne Darvin. It actually comes up again. Because the Tribbles, as you know, comes up numerous times in TV shows, in comics. You mentioned Trials and Tribulations, but there are other versions of this. There's also a comic called Blood Will Tell, which is by IDW Comics. It talks about his character through other stories of Klingons fighting the Federation. Basically, in that one, he kills the actual Arne Darwin and poisons the grain, but he goes through surgery where they saw down and file down his bones to make him human with no possibility of ever returning. And the comic talks about his entire life living as a human, even though he can't stand it, and how he escapes. That's kind of weird. There's also another version called Honor in the Night. Yes?
That doesn't make any sense.
What doesn't make any sense?
He would have been already affected by the augment virus, which is why everyone looks like all the Klingons look humanoid. We do not talk about it with outsiders.
Except the surgery happened before the augment virus, so that's it.
Well, then how long was he pretending to be this Brill guy?
Well, he wasn't. No, Brill is the actor. Arne Darvin. That was only recently. But, you know, timelines in Star Trek are fast and loose, and the comic came out before Enterprise. You'll have to take a look at it, though.
Okay.
But take a look at Blood Will Tell comic, fans of Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies, or Honor in the Night, where Arne Darvin actually is actually a made-up character. They hacked the Federation database to make the character as the assistant to the Undersecretary Niels Barris. So you have that. But when we get to this space station, I love that we talk about Qudrotritacale. Yeah, you ever hear of Qudrotritacale before, besides seeing the episode?
No. Some sort of theoretically delicious and fruitful grain.
Sort of. Triticale, as Spock says, is a two-lobe hybrid. Well, it's actually invented in Canada, which is true. Not Russia, as our comedic Mr. Chekhov says. It is a two-lobe hybrid between wheat and rye. So in order to make it more science fiction-y, they added Qudrotritacale. Later, Star Trek mates Quintotritacale as a food source. And in real life, triticale is a food source. It's big in Europe, mainly Eastern Europe and France. But here in the U.S., it's used as a feed grain or health food stuff. So you can go to the supermarket and buy triticale if you so wanted it. I've never... but actually, we've all had triticale, believe it or not. It's a lot of times used as the grain for cereals of many things.
Oh, Qudrotritacale. I've read about this, but I've never seen any before.
Does everybody know about this wheat but me?
Well, not everyone, Captain. It's a Russian invention.
So, it's neat. But you'd never know it.
Neat indeed.
Neat indeed.
Injecting a little science.
Yes, science! Something that New Trek forgot about. But anyway, I know.
Speaking of New Trek, can we just...
Talk about Section 31, the trailer? No?
No, God, that looked like terrible. It looked like a clown show. I'm not gonna listen.
Are you gonna talk about the trouble with Edward, the short trek of Tribbles?
That is exactly what I was going to talk about. Which I'm like, so where does this bullshit stem in?
It's terrible.
Like, not only that, the Tribbles have been around for decades.
It doesn't make any sense.
The whole point is that the Klingons don't like them.
It makes absolutely no sense.
And also, he's like some sociopath who's like, we have replicators, but let's make a meat source, a source of meat.
Yeah, actually, it turns into cereal.
That is sentient.
Yeah.
That is really cute, by the way, so we can slaughter them and they can trill as we murder them and eat them.
Well,
what is wrong with these writers on New Trek?
Well,
dude?
they don't really have real life experience to do anything. But the Tribbles have come back in many times. They've appeared in the animated series after this, which is a continuation. It is called More Tribbles, More Troubles. There is also the DS9 episode, which you noted, which is Trials and Tribulations. In Prodigy...
Trials and Tribulations.
Yes, in Star Trek Prodigy, which is more recent, they have a Tribble called Quell, but that one's a little bit weird, where the Tribbles are more carnivorous. We have the trouble with Edward. We have the trouble with Edward, which is where apparently they're trying to make that the Federation created Tribbles to breed crazily, which doesn't make sense. We have a couple of Tribbles in Picard Season 3 in the episode called The Bounty, where you see a killer Tribble. That makes us...
That's a terrifying thought.
It's also ridiculous. And also you see a Tribble with super blood being brought back to life in the Into Darkness Star Trek II remake by J.J. Abrams. That is terrible. But
J.J. incapable of telling a story. Abrams.
Yep. No, he's a hack. So, but we haven't even come to what the hell Tribbles are. We actually get to the bar. We meet Cyrano Jones. By the way, Gene Coon said to David Gerrold, "Don't you think he's kind of like Harry Mudd?" They would have had Harry Mudd.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's exactly what I thought. The second I saw.
That's right.
Although this guy is what? You go.
No.
first.
I was just gonna say Roger Carmel wasn't available, but go ahead. What were you gonna say about this guy who's playing?
This guy is true 2024, 2025 fat. Harvey Mudd was merely rotund. He was 1960s fat.
Mm-hmm.
This guy could slam down a dozen donuts easy. I guarantee it. And now, are you telling me that was supposed to be Harry Mudd?
Well, no. They just pointed out that he seems like Harry Mudd, but there was talk that they would bring back Harry Mudd into an episode, but nope, that's not who he is. It's just someone else. David Gerrold just called him Cyrano, and here we are. We have him right now. Cyrano Jones. He's actually an actor named Stanley Adams. He was in many different TV shows. He was even in the Batman 1966 as Chief O'Hara's deputy or captain named Captain Courageous. It's ridiculous.
Oh,
he was 52 in this. I like the fact that he plays kind of an idiot throughout the whole thing,
but also like a good old-fashioned con
Yes.
man, a little conniving, pretty charming, and not evil.
What is it?
What is it? Why, lovely lady, it's a tribble. Only the sweetest creature known to man. Except, and of course, your lovely self. It's only saying that it likes you.
Are you selling?
And down to steal a free drink when the opportunity arises.
And you can also see in the bartender the prototype for where Quark came from as well. You know, yeah. I love that because I think Quark also sells spike and flame gems. So it's the same items. It's also interesting DS9 has Tranya, but that's a story for another day. But I like that little scene, and then we get to see a Tribble being handed to Uhura, and we hear about the 10% markup going from 6 credits to 10 credits. What happened to the moneyless Federation? What do you think about that one? Obviously, you pay for things. What are credits? No one really knows. What do you think of that?
Well, obviously, Quark is not serving people for free on DS9.
Well, then what are they doing here?
I assume, obviously, that like, communist Russia, everyone gets assigned a certain amount of credits, or everything goes on the Federation tab, but no one ever splurges. Like, no one's going in and buying up the entire bar. So, because they're not interested in material goods or games.
I do like that.
Unless it's a baseball
That's
card.
true. Yeah, that's right. Against the minions of orthodoxy. But the fuzzies or the Tribble in that scene where Uhura's going, oh, look, it's purring at me. That means it likes you. I like that entire bit. What a great salesman Cyrano Jones is. And he even dresses down Chekhov, saying it doesn't have any teeth, but it eats the entire vial of grain that Captain Kirk gives to Chekhov, who Chekhov also knows about it, Qudrotritacale, which Kirk has no idea what the heck it is. I think that's actually kind of humorous, that entire little bit. But there we are. We get back to the ship, and Kirk is getting redressed by an Admiral Fitzpatrick, saying he has to give any support Niels Barris likes. I actually do like that scene. It's kind of what I would expect. Where Starfleet says, the political office says, do it. We're the soldiers. You do what the politicians tell you to do. Yes, sir.
I'm telling you, man, they're dirty commies. This is exactly what was going on in Soviet Russia.
It happens here, too. Who are you kidding? You have a higher-up saying, you got to do it. You do's what you got to do, as they would say in Futurama. But something humorous about Admiral Fitzpatrick, he was actually the Allstate Good Hands guy. He would sell the Good Hands, you're in good hands with Allstate. He was the commercial actor for that. I think that's actually quite funny. So there's an outtake, which I'm going to post on the community board, where you're in good hands with Tribbles, he says. So everyone was loving these things. They made several hundred of these things. They sewed these items over here. A guy named Irving Feinberg and Jim Rugg, the special effects team, they just put these things together. They had 296 tribble troubles, as they called them. And they made hundreds of these things. And they were originally black and brown and kind of a light brown. Some of them are actually mechanical toy dogs where they cut the heads off. That's like the ones that are walking. Those are mechanical dogs. You know, the dogs that you could buy like in any cheap shop or Chinatown here in New York that wander around. So that's what those are. Those are actually dogs with their heads cut off.
Oh, super. I do like the variety that the props department put in.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I also like that little bit of the humor in there. It's like Spock saying, well, you knew that was coming. You're going to have to follow whatever Starfleet command tells you to do. And then we have, again, more interaction with Niels Barris, and he's going like, for whatever you want, it's been noted and logged. Do you think it was a terrible move for Kirk to only give 2 security guards, or do you think he should have, from the get-go, assigned a team?
Well, considering how I know how this episode turned out, that, it was kind of rotten from the inside. No one was trying to steal it. It was already poisoned. No. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a little petty. It was like, whatever. But I do like that entire interaction between the parties, between the characters, where you have the really prissy bureaucrat.
Captain Kirk, how dare you authorize a mere 2 men for a project of this importance? Starfleet Commander.
I have never questioned the orders or the intelligence of any representative of the Federation until now.
But then the other issue we have is getting on the Enterprise, where Uhura comes to the rec room. She started with one tribble, and now she's got like half a, it was like 20 of them in that rec room scene.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, well, how'd that happen? I don't know. And Kirk's like, well, okay. I like he's looking at it, eyeing it like crazy. I guess there's no rule against, pets on the Enterprise at all. But it makes you wonder, does everyone have like a pet fish somewhere or something? But anyway.
Well, I mean, what's his name? Picard had a pet fish, and of course, Archer had Porthos. Cute little boy.
Yeah, that's pre-Federation, though. And Porthos gets Archer.
Well, Data had a cat.
Well, that's true. He does have Spot. That is quite true.
I don't know why there aren't more dogs. In fact, just as I said that, my dog ruffled his feathers.
I want attention, Michael. That's what it's. That's what you're doing.
No, she's keeping guard over me right now. She's facing the door.
Oh yes, in your luxury Federation high-rise, human. What'd you think of the?
She doesn't know that.
What'd you think of the Klingons in this, who arrive and everyone's like, "Oh, geez, them." You have Captain Koloth. You recognize him, don't you?
Ah, my dear Captain Kirk. My dear Captain Koloth. Let me assure you that my intentions are peaceful. As I've already told Mr. Lurie, the purpose of my presence here is to invoke shore leave right.
The Squire of Gothos is yes,
Really?
it's the same actor, William Campbell. What'd you think? What'd you think of him as Captain Koloth in this?
Fantastic. And also, like, the more I look at them, the more I can see, even without any facial prosthetics or anything, I can see the future Klingon. You know, the hair, the smirk, the swagger, the aggression.
Yeah, it's a lot of that is always telegraphed into TNG and beyond. I do like that it's William Campbell, and Koloth does come back in DS9. Originally, they wanted John Colicos' core, but Colicos was booked on somewhere else. And remember, John Colicos' core, besides being in DS9, he was in Errand of Mercy. That's where we first meet the Klingons. Meet the Klingons! That's when we first meet them.
Mm-hmm.
The idea was to have a recurring running into between either Koloth and Kirk or Core and Kirk. Unfortunately, the actors never materialized, but I thought that would have been neat if they were consistent adversaries over there. One of the other things that about William Campbell is after this episode aired, all the kids in his neighborhood called his wife Mrs. Klingon. So I think that's kind of cute. Could you imagine that walking around? You're the Klingon's wife, But anyway, Justman also liked this episode, surprisingly, and they just wanted to make sure that he would obviously save money. Actually, it was Justman who said this is like Harry Mudd. He did like the idea of a space station, and he said and this is uncharacteristic of our penny-pinching producer, he said, let's use the space station because we could probably use it to make a toy, and also we could probably use it again. And that I find humorous at all. David Gerald talking about Kuhn and Justman, he pointed out that Justman gave a 6-page, single-spaced memo on things he wanted to change. He said anyone who would send a 6-page, single-spaced, 1,000-word to the page memo to a new writer listing in glaring detail all the faults in his first draft script is the kind of man who would sacrifice naked Girl Scouts, cookie packages still clutched in their hands, before a giant statue of Mammon, the god of money, while cackling gleefully and muttering arcane verses from the Wall Street Journal. That's pretty descriptive of how Robert Justman is perceived. What do you think of the name Tribbles overall? What do you think of that?
Good, better than what were they called? Fuzzies?
Fuzzies.
Tribbles. Tribbles is cute, and they trill, they coo. Also it sounds nice. The alliteration, trouble with tribbles, beautiful.
Yeah, it sure does. They like the trouble with the tribbles. They had other names too. They had Shaggies, Gollies, Goonies, Roonies, Willies, Puffies, Poofies, Tippies, Triblets. But then we got Tribbles. And when they were talking it over, they couldn't think of the name. They said, "You think you got Tribbles? That's it." So they had trouble with the Tribbles right there. That's how they came up with it. That's kind of cute. I like also the fact that McCoy is going to dissect these things. What do you think about that? Kind of bizarre?
I mean, well, they were dead.
Well, no, before that. He goes like when Scotty, when he takes one from Uhura, she goes, "Well, if you want to dissect it, I don't want to know about it." He goes, "I won't hurt a hair on its head, wherever it is."
Lieutenant, do you mind if I take one of these down to the lab, see what makes it tick?
Well, all right, Doctor, but if you're going to dissect it, I don't want to know about it.
I won't harm a hair on its head, wherever that is.
That entire bit is cute,
Mm-hmm.
And then Kirk notices there's a whole bunch of them, and that's when we get to our shore leave scene, where Kirk sees Scotty, goes, "Scotty, why don't you go down on shore? Why aren't you relaxing?" "I am. I'm reading my technical journals." I can kind of relate to that.
I like that little like red light display that he had. It looked pretty cool.
Another technical journal, Scotty? Aye. Don't you ever relax?
I am relaxing.
Yeah. I do like the fact that he's reading technical journals to keep abreast of engineering things. When I was a computer teacher, I would read PC World magazine for fun. It was interesting. It was well written too, so that's probably what. Did you ever have a professional magazine that you would read like that before, or no?
I will say, I think it was Chernow on constitutional law.
Mm-hmm.
I did enjoy reading that. Their law books are actually pretty fascinating. Those big law textbooks,
Some of them.
Yeah, I find them to be usually well read. The classic ones like criminal law, contract law, the most basic ones. When you get into like freaking securities litigation, God knows what you're reading. But
Computer law.
obviously a securities litigator would know what they're reading. But little old working class attorneys like Matt and I have no idea what it says. But no, and constitutional law I think is the most fascinating, because talking about how a modern jurist is trying to interpret the intention of the founding fathers 250 years ago is pretty fascinating. Anyway, well, we completely nerd out about something not related. Let's never mind.
Well, we get to the bar, What did you think of the bar scene with the insulting Klingon?
Oh,
I actually really like that entire little bit. I think, it really sells how the Klingons are just egging for a fight with the Federation officers, the humans. I think it does it better than anything new Star Trek done before, which is dark, sad, twisted, angry. This is more of a rivalry, although it does have a lot of negative connotations between the two of the two powers that seem to be evenly matched for the most part. Just that entire insult fest. I love that entire scene, the way it's worded. That's why I'm learning Klingonese.
We like the Enterprise. We really do. That sagging old rust bucket is designed like a garbage scow. Half the quadrant knows it. That's why they're learning to speak Klingonese.
What did you think of that little bit there, with the insults all the way down to the Danubian slime? Would you get into a fight if they called me a Danubian slime devil, or no?
Well, I would take the higher road. I would hold off. Then again, if they said anything bad about our podcast, you better believe I'd start throwing fists. Or my ability as an attorney.
Yeah. I always like that scene is like where where Scotty's trying to calm down Chekhov.
Yeah, I know.
He's
so chill. He's like, "Hey, it's fine. It's just words."
He gives the other person's drink to Chekhov. He says, "Now drink your drink." So he's already eaten. That's why Chekhov looks at it like, "What the hell is this crap?"
I will say, Captain, general life lesson here. How do you feel about the concept of people saying horrible things? Personally, on the one hand, I'm like, yes, okay, hot air, let it wash over you. Words can't hurt you, etc. And then another part of me says, yeah, I feel much better planting my fist square in the face of someone who said something awful.
Oh, I'm a lover, not a fighter. But I fight with words. That's why words are our tools, and I have a law degree. However, And calling the Enterprise a garbage scow, well, that's a step too far because it is.
That it is garbage.
It should be hauled away as garbage.
I liked how he's chewing the scenery there. I really dug it.
That's Michael Pataki as Korax is the name of the Klingon. By the way, you have seen him again in Star Trek The Next Generation.
What? Who? Where?
Yeah.
Where am I?
He was in the episode Too Short a Season where the Admiral ages backwards. He is Karnax, the leader of the bad guy planet. That's who he is.
Huh, I got to check that out. Mike Stokasa makes fun of that actor playing the old Admiral for looking at his marks.
Yeah, but it's not the Admiral I'm talking about. I'm talking about the guy who sets up the Admiral. He was also in T.J. Hooker as well, which I find hilarious. So that's actually, but that entire scene with the fight, with the stuntmen ready to beat the crap out of each other, that was actually pretty hilarious.
But I mean, I'm serious there. Those stuntmen, which I thought it was James Doohan, actually. I didn't know if there was a stuntman.
James Doohan was in that. Yes, he was, actually, because he likes to do his own stunts.
Dude,
yes.
They were going at each other.
Oh,
they didn't look like they were pulling their punches at all. Like, okay, no, they were pulling their punches. They weren't connecting fist to face. But everything other than that, with the grabbing and throwing and the tackling, they were going pretty hard.
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty wild fight. I always find it humorous that everyone else is just standing around looking at them, and then you have Cyrano Jones stealing everything out of the drink replicator. I think that's pretty fun. That's funny. You know, Chekhov is like, trying to beat up one of the Klingons and makes no effect on him. I think that's pretty funny. Good try there, Pavel.
Well, that does show us, bringing me to another question here. The augment virus, which I know that you hate.
No, I don't hate it. I actually think it's a cute way to wrap things up through. We're talking, those of you who don't know, the augment virus is from Enterprise in the 4th season, where the Klingons try and copy a super serum virus that was created to make superhumans that created the eugenics wars, a eugenics attempt. And it goes badly, making Klingons look, well, not like the next generation Klingons with like their spines going through their foreheads type of thing.
So did the augment virus physically weaken the Klingons?
Because
Klingons are supposed to be very strong.
Yeah, but this entire area is left enigmatic, and I like to think, use your own imagination. That's something that I like about this series. Is like you don't have to have everything spelled out. For me, I would say it made them weaker. That's what I would say. It would made them more humanoid or more human-like, not humanoid. They are humanoid, because we do live in a Homo sapiens only club. It does make them weaker in some sense, but it's actually interesting to think that in some ways they're almost evenly matched, even with their change. Because if you take a look in DS9 episodes, the crew can actually fight hand to hand. Even humans fight Klingons and knock the crap out of them. When DS9 is being attacked by the Klingons, or as the scene is called, Attack of the Klingons. You know what I'm referring to?
Yes.
Yeah, so the crew can hand it. But anyway, that's the end of the fight. What'd you think of where Kirk calls out Scotty, though? I thought that entire little bit was hilarious.
What was it they said that started the fight?
They called the Enterprise a garbage scow.
You hit the Klingons because they insulted the Enterprise, not because they...
Well, sir, this was a matter of pride.
Of course, and that is one of the scenes that I had seen a bunch of times, as that scene was prominently used in DS9. And man, oh man, was it seamless. Because I've seen that episode enough. I know where Miles O'Brien is standing. And I'm like, Jesus, it's that guy? That's the guy? Because it looks just like the color palette looks perfect.
Yeah, they used the same stock. They found the same stock and color lighting that Jerry Finnerman used back in 1967 for this episode. That's how they did it. You mean he stands in for one of the crew members there? Yeah, it really is seamless. But I do like the fact that Scotty gets it. Now I can go back to reading my technical journals.
Yeah.
Right.
So We press on. The Tribbles are taking over the Enterprise. They get into Kirk's chicken sandwich
And coffee.
and coffee, and then we go back around and find that the Tribbles have been eating all the precious genetically modified wheat germ.
Qudrotritacale. Jeez.
Of course, yes.
By the way, just a
Qudrotritacale.
just as a quick aside, when Scotty comes in with an armful of Tribbles, when he says, "Yep, they're in the machinery," that's the one time you get to see his missing finger. You'd have to look really carefully, but you'll see his missing finger. You have to get close to the screen, but I just figured I'd mention it. Yet they're trying to. They figure out that the Tribbles are inside all the vents on the Enterprise, which has the same type of structure as the space station. And we come to our favorite scene. That is hilarious, where they can't open the door of the grain because they're so packed with, well, we find out, and we see Kirk getting buried in a whole bunch of Tribbles.
Yeah.
That is, to me, hilarious.
Nightmare
By the way,
for the props department there.
No, it was a lot of fun. By the way, they fell exactly the way they wanted them to. And the Tribble that hits Shatner in the head, that wasn't a purposeful throw. It just happened to fall out that way.
Oh, lovely.
Shatner played it perfectly, I thought, and that's what Joe Pevney had mentioned, too. He played that scene very well. It goes, especially when McCoy says, I want you to find out what killed the Tribbles. And McCoy goes, I haven't figured out what keeps them alive yet. Just that look of, like, murder in Kirk's eyes, like, all right, I'll take a look at it. So what did you think of that with the pile of, you must have liked it. You thought it was cute? With the pile
very
of
cute.
cooing fuzzballs.
And I like that, again, it's not just for cute's sake. They're moving the plot along. Hey, these Tribbles are dead. They've been eating this. The stuff is poison.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to go back a little bit. One thing I really do like is the banter between McCoy and Spock when they're trying to figure out what the deal is with the Tribbles. That it just sums up their relationship perfectly, where McCoy professes his like of Tribbles more than Spock, and Spock says, I like them better than you as well, McCoy.
Spock, I don't know too much about these little Tribbles yet, but there is one thing that I have discovered.
What is that, Doctor?
I like them better than I like you.
Doctor,
Yes.
they do indeed have one redeeming characteristic.
What's that?
They do not talk too much.
I think that's actually kind of funny. Like, they respect each other begrudgingly. But it's one of my favorite things. I like that Spock says, they return nothing. McCoy points out they make nice sounds, and he goes, yeah, so would a violin, but I don't see the need to have one. I thought that's actually pretty funny. And Spock also is affected by the cooing sound of the...
Yeah, of course he is. He's half
doesn't affect me in the least. And everyone's like staring at him. Yeah, sure it doesn't. Just to let you know, the cooing sound is a sped up version of doves, and the angry Tribble sound is actually an owl screeching. So that's kind of
interesting.
It's very interesting. They were actually designed originally by the props designer Hua Chang, who does most of these things. And since George Takei isn't in this episode, or George Takei, all of his dialogue was given to Chekhov. He was in the Green Berets, George Takei, in the meantime, because they didn't expect
God
this
bless
to
him.
be... Yeah, there you go.
Wait,
This
George Takei was a Green Beret?
No, the movie The Green Berets.
Oh, okay.
With John
Oopsie.
Wayne. You know,
Okay.
so... also, there's another new person. The nice little knickknacks all over the place. There's a new set designer named John Dwyer, who worked well with Matt Jeffries. John Dwyer actually got the show nominated for an Emmy for his work. He's as a set decorator. So that's the person like makes things look like the way they look: walls, floors, ceilings, stuff like little crap all over the place. So he actually did a good job. And I said the Tribbles are white, brown, light gray. Would you like a Tribble?
I have a Tribble. Name's Cannoli. At my side. She purrs. She coos. That's my dog. No, I would not like a Tribble because they're too cute, and they're born pregnant and a menace. And I would then have to, I don't know, put them in a blender? What do you do?
Well, in the animated series, David Gerald came up with an idea called a glommer. I even have a glommer, which is a stuffed glommer, 2 children I know really like it. And by the way, in the animated series, they colored the Tribbles pink. Some people thought it was because the art director was colorblind, and couldn't see the colors. No, he said he just did it just to make them different looking.
So what's a glommer?
I put a picture. A glommer is a thing that eats Tribbles.
That's no good either. They're such a sweet little animal, and they're immobile. They hardly move.
Well, they do move. You do see them. Anytime they see food, they make a beeline for it, so they go for it. I do like them. They're kind of cute. As Kirk says, you should sell an instruction manual for them, and something I've often said, but then what would happen to mankind's quest for knowledge? I do like that kind of brush off. It's like, yeah, you'll figure it out later. Kind of reminds me of a way a lot of times computers are sold. Yeah. You should be able to figure out the autoexec.bat and programming language. But that's where we come to. We find out that the grain has been poisoned. Kirk pulls in Cyrano Jones, gets Niels Barris there saying, you've screwed up the project. The Klingons are saying, you've given us Sherman's planet because you can't do anything about it. And we find the grain that's going to feed the people on Sherman's planet is all poisoned, as you were saying. And then we come to our final scene in this episode, where Kirk confronts Arne Darvin with the Tribbles. And they screech because Klingons and Tribbles hate each other. You know, and we find out about the great Tribble hunt as Odo makes fun of Worf in the DS9 episode, which I find hilarious. What'd you think of that ending? Did you like the way they wrapped it all on up?
Darvin, you gonna talk?
I have nothing to say. All right, I poisoned the grain. Take them away.
And the Tribbles had nothing to do with it.
I don't know. I never saw one before in my life, and I hope I never see one of those fuzzy, miserable things again.
Yes, I thought it was a great ending. I liked the idea that there was indeed this traitor among them, that they used the Tribbles. And again, this was telegraphed very early. It was actually a pretty good mystery episode, a pretty good espionage episode. It wasn't just about the Tribbles. The Tribbles were just incidental, but they also moved the plot along. It was actually a very well technically written episode. Now, this guy, oh God, I'm sorry, I keep on forgetting the name of the secret Klingon.
Arne Darvin?
Darvin, when we see him in DS9, he's been in a Cardassian prison camp, talking about how they drink hot fish juice every morning, and he misses a Klingon Raktuchino. But he's not in prison for like 100 years, is he?
Yeah, no, he actually fled the Federation at one point. You can read that. It's more in the Apocrypha. He escaped the Federation. If you read that comic that I had mentioned, it talks about ways he gets to Cardassia, how he gets stuck over there during the war with the Klingons, and he looks human, so not everyone's a big fan of him, so he's an enemy combatant. I believe he says that in the DS9 episode. The Klingons are longer lived than humans, so that's how he's able to still be alive 86 years after Kirk and Spock have moved on, so to speak, or actually since Kirk's moved on. So that's why he's there. But yeah. And the actor said, I was the only Klingon with a Brooklyn accent, he said. I just think that.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm from South Kronos. You know what I'm talking about there.
He really didn't have a very strong Brooklyn accent.
No, but that's his take on it. I think it's pretty funny, though. I do also like the political drama in this. For as much as a comedy episode it is, we've got a lot of serious issues here. We've got a peace treaty and a competition between two superpowers. As Kirk points out at the beginning, the Klingons are efficient at developing things. And
it's not right, which I thought was which is also very Soviet Union. I mean, that's the thing. When you have the entire power of a government, you might be able to get a power plant made overnight. I really liked how that it also wasn't some doomsday weapon. It was just good grain.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was very grounded in reality.
Yeah, it was which system of government runs things better? The Federation with its science and technology, or the brutal efficiency of the dictatorship or the empire of the Klingons? And you never really get to see that played out any better than in this episode. Both sides are trying to develop the same planet. Obviously, with the espionage on the part of the Klingons lose their claim to this. And besides this being a comedy, it does have some serious impact on human Klingon or Federation Klingon relations. You do get that impact. It's not all played for laughs the entire time. For every laugh,
Oh.
there's at least 2 serious moments in this. You know?
Most definitely.
Yeah, and that's what makes, for me, it makes this enjoyable. And as we find out when they get rid of all the tribbles, I also like that ending where Scotty says, I gave them all to the Klingons, where there'll be no tribble at all. That is, could you imagine what it'd be like on that Klingon ship? They'd probably be like, oh my God, everyone out of the engineering.
I mean, I don't know why they thought that was better than just killing them, because obviously
Like
if I was the
space 'em.
Klingons, I'm like, all right, everyone on the bridge, great, everyone's here, okay, blow the air vents.
Yeah, that's what
blow the hatches.
But it would take them a while to get to it, though. You know, imagine that the triples go through the air vents. Maybe they eat targ meat that's laying around. Who knows what happens to them? You know. So I think that was it is a pretty funny ending for overall. And just to let you know, in almost every outtake thereafter, or every scenes thereafter, in even later episodes, people are walking around with tribbles, or they're playing with them all over the place. And Brill, the comedian who played Arne Darvin, said, you know, it's the one time I didn't take something. I didn't take a tribble. Everyone else did. But those original tribbles are probably worth something.
About to say, where are they? I mean, they probably rotted by now.
Oh, yeah.
Still.
No, I mean, I got one from conventions and so forth. Just some other characters. Whit Bissell is Mr. Lurie, the manager. I find that fascinating. He's a manager, not a Starfleet captain. And there's no security force on this station. Well,
we see what happens there.
Yep, Whit Bissell was also in the time.
Oda would never have let this happen.
No. If you had just gone to the police, this would never have happened. Whit Bissell also plays a character named Lieutenant General Kirk, no relation to Captain Kirk, from the Time Tunnel. That's another sci-fi show. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's a time travel one.
I never actually sat down and watched Time Tunnel, although I do know about it.
Ed Reimers was Admiral Fitzpatrick. He is, again, the You're in Good Hands with Allstate guy in the 60s, so that's pretty funny. You'll see the outtake for that. And don't forget to buy a You're in Good Hands with the Hands of the Prophets on our Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies t-shirt store. There we have Paul Barley. He was the stuntman coordinator. He's also known as Freeman. Isn't he the one edited it out for Chief O'Brien? I think he is, but I
believe so. Yes.
Yeah, he's actually the stunt coordinator, but he was also stand-ins for Shatner and Marlon Brando, which I find hilarious. And he also was the stunt man for John Fielder as Red Jack. Interesting. Yeah, exactly. But that's basically it. We've got espionage, comedy, drama, fuzzy, cute things that people like. We see the Klingon Federation competition going on, and we end this episode. Unless there's something else you want to add, I could tell you what the budget was, or you can guess what it is, or we could do our grades. What would you like to do?
Let me guess the budget, because this one, come on, we had all these props, we had a full cast, we had a whole bunch of new sets, but then again, I keep on going over, because I guess they got the season 2 budget under control. I'm going to say $194,000.
Very close. It came in on time and on budget. $184,994 in 1967, which today is $1,747,434.49. So it came in budget and on time. Look at that. Crazy,
Hot
right?
dog.
Yeah, good time.
Hey, man, professional.
Yep. By the way, you asked, James Doohan did 95% of the stunts in the fight scene, just to let you know.
God bless him. That guy apparently worked hard and played hard.
That's quite true. The K-7 space station was from Douglas Aircraft, as an idea. Jerry Fielding's music. He did the music for this episode specifically and for Spectre of the Gun. And it's like, oh, okay. But he also did the music for The Wild Bunch, which he was nominated for twice for Oscars, Straw Dogs, and The Outlaw Josie Wales. Also, more recently, The Gauntlet and The Enforcer with Clint Eastwood. So he's done that as well.
Huh.
Kind of neat. So there we go. I just want to point out a couple of things. William Campbell, like I told you, he liked this episode. His wife was called Mrs. Klingon. Walter Koenig, Nichelle Nichols, and James Doohan, and William Shatner loved this episode. Leonard Nimoy, not so much. Neither did Samuel Peebles, who wrote Where No Man Has Gone Before, and Jerry Finnerman, the lighting and set designer, didn't like it. Weird, right?
Well, Nimoy doesn't have very much to do, so I figured that one.
That's quite true.
I don't know why everyone else had a problem, but okay.
Well, but I do have a question for you, because I joked with you before we started this, is at the end where Cyrano Jones is tasked to cleaning up the station, his choices are 20 years in a rehab colony or 17.9 years to clean the place up. You said you would take the 17.9 years.
Pick up every trip on the space station. If you do that, I'll speak to Mr. Lurie about returning your spaceship.
It would take years. 17.9 to be exact.
Yeah, because I figured that there would be some way to expedite that, or I just run away. It's
Well,
not a prison.
You can't run away.
A prison is a prison.
Well, he's stuck there. They won't let him have his ship. So
Okay, I think that over the course of 17 years, either I could kill all the Tribbles or run away.
I do like that choice. What a great choice. That's actually, by the way, one of my favorite lines, though, in this entire episode always is Spock going next to Cyrano Jones going like this. Well, removing the Tribbles from their natural environment, they give in to their natural proclivities. It goes, well, of course, what'd you say?
Surely you must have realized what would happen if you removed the Tribbles from their predator-filled environment into an environment where their natural multiplicative proclivities would have no restraining factors.
Well, of course. What did you say?
I love that little bit there. He doesn't understand what Spock is talking because he's using them big words. But
Yes.
good times. But anyway, let's come to our final ratings, unless there's something else from this episode that you really like and you want to add.
No, I'm good. I'm ready when you are. Do you want to go first?
No,
Shall I go first?
I defer to you. What do you give this episode
Thank
on
you,
a very scientific 1 to 10 scale? Mike, what are you going to give our Trouble with the Tribbles?
Acting was great. Writing was great. Resolution was fuzzy.
No puns.
Pacing was not 100%. And it was a lighter episode, which of course I like, but I also like my sci-fi high, and I do take the Federation seriously. So just purely based on what has come before, I give this a 9 out of 10.
Wow. I, too, give it a 9 out of 10 for very much the
great
same.
minds.
That's right. Great minds do think alike for very similar reasons. The comedy, the political intrigue, the spying. I actually do like the Tribbles. I like that. I like the way Kirk is portrayed in this as both as a hard ass and a stickler for rules, but he also is a little bit soft with his when it comes to his crew. He knows how to handle Captain Koloth and Niels Barris to some degree. Doesn't suffer any fools, which Niels Barris clearly is. I do like the Cyrano Jones character. I even down to the fight scene, even though I do think it goes on for a couple minutes too long. Just the way it starts with insulting the Enterprise and the way Scotty's played, just all of it. Even the bit pieces like with Uhura and Chekhov, even though Uhura does have more things to say and do, and as does Chekhov, I do like the way all the characters kind of interact, and you do get the feeling of a fully lived-in spaceship and space station. There are people in the hallways doing who knows what. Oh, it makes you think what's going on.
As what's her name? As Jadzia Dax says, they really packed them in on these Constitution class. Because, I mean, the Enterprise was always, the original Enterprise always seemed much more crowded than the SD.
Well, yes, one's a floating hotel and the other one is a working ship. There's over 400 men and women on that ship, as you know, well and good on there. But, yep, there we go. That's our ratings, both 9s out of 10. It's a really good time. We really highly recommend it. And I bet you don't know what our next episode is. In fact, Mike, I will bet you 500 quatlus you don't know the name of the next episode. Do you know what it is?
I don't.
It is the Game Masters of Triskelion, and then you'll find out what a quatlu is for our next upcoming episode on yelling at gaseous anomalies, and we hope you join us. As always, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to email at us at yellingatgas@gmail.com. Don't forget to get a T-shirt, especially the You're in Good Hands with the Prophets of Allstate, on our Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies TeePublic T-shirt store at the Yelling at Gaseous Anomalies storefront. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification, and get to us on all of those podcatchers out there. And we'll see you on the next one. Mike, anything you want to add to our over 50,000 viewers and listeners? Besides, thank
great
you.
episode. Thank you. Drop some comments. Let us know that you're real and not a bunch of robots and not a bunch of datas.
Or tribbles.
Or tribbles or a big space, interdimensional
Cloud.
space octopus is going to come and invade us because we have a bunch of AI that's just listening to us. So, yes, please.
Yes.
Say hi. We love you. And pressure Captain to set some time for our video trivia episode. Ooh, did I just let the cat out of the bag? Let's see
We're
what
going to do that next. We will have a video trivia episode coming up, we promise. And you can bother me as much as you want in emails. I don't feel bothered. And if you are just a bunch of robots, we salute you, our new robot overlords. As always, live long and prosper, and we'll see you out there.
I gave them to the Klingons, sir.
Gave them to the Klingons.
Aye, sir. Before they went into warp, I transported the whole kit and caboodle into the air engine room, where there'll be no tribble at all.